I have been reading so much these last few days just so I could sit down and film this video. I'm super excited for today's video because I will be sharing all of my summer book recommendations. There are so many good books and I have a little bit of everything, a little bit of romance, different types of tropes, mystery, psychological thrillers. I'm super excited and I don't want to ramble on forever, so we are just going to jump right in. I'm going to start off with my 3 all-time favorite romance books. If you have been watching my channel for a hot minute, then you probably recognize these books. I talk about them so much, but I could not make a summer book recommendation video without bringing these 3 up. But I promise this is the last time. You guys are probably sick and tired of me talking about these books. But the first book that I want to recommend to you guys is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a rom-com, super cute. It's actually a enemies to lovers with a little bit of fake dating in there. It was just such a entertaining read, and the reason I wanted to include it as a summer book recommendation is because the scenery in this book is 10 out of 10 elite. This book basically follows Olive, who tends to have the worst luck ever, except that on her sister's wedding day, everyone in the wedding party gets sick, including the bride and groom, except for Olive and the groom's brother, Ethan. Because their honeymoon is already paid off and they can't get a refund, the bride and groom beg Olive and Ethan to go on their honeymoon for them. So all Olive has to do is check into the hotel under her twin sister's name. The only problem is that Olive hates Ethan and Ethan hates Olive, so now they have to figure out how to enjoy this all-inclusive honeymoon without killing each other. When you read the book, you feel like you're in Hawaii, and I absolutely love that. And I just loved seeing Olive's character growth in this book. Even Ethan's character growth was really nice. They were just super cute together. Christina Lauren are actually 2 best friends who just write books together, and I think that is so cool. It was the first book that I read from them and now I'm hooked. I can't wait to read the rest of their books. The next book that I want to bring up, again because of its scenery, is The Spanish Love Deception. This is actually a fake dating mixed with Grumpy meets Sunshine, and it basically follows Catalina. Catalina's sister is getting married in Spain, but Catalina does not want to show up to her sister's wedding without a date. Her family thinks that she's going to end up single forever, so her work colleague, who she absolutely hates, offers to go to her sister's wedding with her. At first she's like, why are you being nice to me? Why are you willing to go all the way to Spain and pretend to be my boyfriend? You hate me and I hate you. But because she has no other choice, she finally accepts his help and they fly to Spain together. I just fell in love with the 2 main characters in this book, Catalina and Aaron. They were so perfect for one another. Again, this is a cute little rom-com that is going to have you smiling as you read the book. I love the scenery, I love the family values, I love the little Spanish sayings that was sprinkled throughout the book. I know that some people say that this book was slow for them, but I actually enjoyed the pace. I was never bored while reading this book, so I highly recommend. And since it takes place in Spain, I think it takes place during the summer, I'm not 100% sure. I read this a few months ago, but because the scenery is so pretty and you kind of feel like you're in Spain, I decided to include it in this summer book recommendation. The next book that I talked about quite a bit, and I promise again this is the last time I'll bring it up, is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I read this early 2022, so I don't know if it takes place in the summer. I don't think it does, but it was too cute for me not to include it. Now, this is another fake dating meets Grumpy Sunshine type of book. This book basically follows Olive, who is a graduate student, and because she feels pressured by her best friend to start dating, she randomly kisses a graduate professor, and that is basically the start of their fake dating. And through the fake dating, of course, emotions emerge. They both have to navigate these new emotions that they're feeling because they're not really good at communicating or showing their feelings. Your heart is just going to explode while why you read this book because it's just so freaking adorable. I loved Olive and especially Adam. Adam has my heart forever, and I highly recommend that if you hadn't read this book to definitely read it. So I tried to go as quickly as I could with those 3 books because I've talked about them so much. Now the next books that I'm going to talk about and recommend to you guys are books that I recently read within the last 2 weeks, maybe except for 1 or 2, but I made it a mission to read these books. They have been on my TBR for a hot minute, but I wanted to read them specifically for this video, and I'm telling you, they did not disappoint. The first 2 books that I want to talk about are actually part of a series by Tessa Bailey. The first one is It Happened One Summer, and then the second one is Hook, Line, and Sinker. Both of these books are rom-coms and they're so freaking adorable. In the first book, It Happened One Summer, we follow Piper Bellinger, and she is basically sent to a small fishing town called Westport by her stepfather to basically grow up because she's always screwing up and her family always has to bail her out. They're super rich. She's never worked a day in her life. So in order to teach her a life lesson, her stepfather sends her off to this small town. In Westport, she meets a fisherman who doesn't have time for bullshit. He's very direct and he's very stuck in his ways. His name is Brendan. Through their many interactions, they realize that there's actually a lot of chemistry between them. They are just so cute together. Another thing that I really enjoyed is that you get both of the main characters' point of view. I love when romance books do that because you really get to understand the characters and get into their heads. Hook, Line, and Sinker follows Piper's little sister Hannah, and Hannah returns to the small town of Westport. She's super excited because she gets to spend time with her sister, but she also gets to spend time with her best friend Fox. There's an immediate connection between Fox and Hannah, but they're complete opposites. Hannah is very much a relationship type of girl. She doesn't like to mess around, versus Fox is a complete player. He doesn't want to be tied down at all. I really enjoyed this book. It definitely was a lot slower than It Happened One Summer. It definitely was not as funny as the first book, but I still very much enjoyed it. And when you read the ending for Hook, Line, and Sinker, your heart is going to burst from feeling so happy. My heart was like, oh my god, this is so freaking cute. I cannot take the cuteness. The only thing that I didn't like with these books was the dirty talk in them. It was just so cringy and so corny that I was like, ugh, I could do without it. I mean, that would just come down to personal preference. It may not bug you, but it definitely bothered me. That's the only reason I didn't give these books 5 stars. The first one is a lot more cringy than the second one when it comes to the dirty talk. I feel like the second one definitely toned it back a bit, but that's just something that made me like laugh, but not in a good way. I guess it was in a good way because I was like, this is so cliche, but hey, that's how the author wanted to write it, so who am I to judge? I gave both books 4 out of 5 stars. I think they're worth the read. I definitely recommend to read It Happened One Summer first, just because I enjoy that one way more and it kind of sets the scene for the second book. All right, let's take a break from the romance books for a hot minute, and the next book that I want to recommend to you guys is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is a young adult psychological thriller, and I have to say that I was so surprised by this book, kind of. So I'm going to read the back cover because I feel like the synopsis on the back really doesn't give anything away, and if I sit here trying to explain what this book is about, I'm going to ruin it for you. We are Sinclairs. We live, at least in the summertime, on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. Perhaps that's all you need to know, except that some of us are liars. The main reason why I wanted to read this book for this video is because it actually takes place in the summer, so I thought if you read this book during the summer, you get to connect with it a little bit more. It sets the scene. I absolutely loved every second that I read this book. The ending is super predictable. I was honestly able to figure out the ending a few chapters into reading this book, and normally I hate that in a book because then I feel like I wasted my time reading it and I really wasn't surprised. Even though I was able to guess the twist and the ending, I still found myself crying when I finished this book. I was so moved by the ending and everything that happened that I was crying. crying. I was like, why am I crying when I knew exactly what was going to happen? The writing is very simple. It is a very quick read. It looks like it's a little thick, but it's not. It's honestly only 250 pages, super short. This is a great book to just sit out by the pool or go to the beach and read. I was so invested in the story. I did not want to put it down. I don't know if it's because I read this book while there was a full-on thunderstorm going on outside my window. I just had so much fun reading this book. I literally did not want to put it down. So I love this book. Just go into it with zero expectations and just know that you'll be able to figure out the twist, but it's still kind of worth it in my opinion. The next book that I want to talk about is another book from Christina Lauren, and it's Love in Other Words. This book was highly recommended by so many of you guys. I finally read it. If I'm being honest, I'm still trying to process exactly what I think about it, and I have no idea what to rate it. Love in Other Words is basically friends to lovers and second chance at love type of book. It goes from the past to the present following Macy's life. It basically starts off with Macy running into her childhood best friend. You basically get to understand their friendship and relationship from the very beginning. Then something happens that makes them lose touch for 11 years until the day that they run into each other. Honestly, it wasn't a bad book. I decided to include it in this book despite not knowing what to rate it because I do know that a lot of people love it. So I thought I would include it in case you want to check it out and read it for yourself. The next book that I want to recommend to you guys is The Kiss Quotin. I actually finished this book this morning and I absolutely loved it. It is so freaking cute. It is a fake dating type of book. There is a little bit of insta love in here. I really enjoyed this book because it was different from anything else I've read. It follows Stella Lane, who is autistic. She finds it very hard to connect emotionally and physically with people, specifically men. She has had sexual experiences, but they have been so bad. But because she feels pressured from her mom to get married and have kids, she decides to basically fix herself. So she hires a male escort by the name of Michael, and she basically begs him to help her figure out how she can overcome her insecurities and how she can allow herself to connect with men in that way. And it's such a wholesome book. I enjoyed reading this book so much. I was smiling throughout. I absolutely love Stella. She's such a fun character, and I absolutely loved Michael as well. These two were so cute together. We definitely need more Michaels in this world. He was perfect. I gave this book a 5-star rating. That's how much I absolutely loved it. Be prepared that if you start reading this book, you probably won't want to put it down and you'll probably end up reading it in one sitting, which is what summer books are all about. This is such a great book to take with you to the beach or to the pool. And I also like that the author tackled such an important topic, such as autism. I feel like there's so many stereotypes with any type of disorder, but specifically autism. I was kind of afraid going into this book, I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't know if the author was going to tackle that topic in a respectful way, but she absolutely did. She did such a great job. 10 out of 10. If you read this book, definitely read the acknowledgement at the back. I don't want to spoil it for you, but just read the acknowledgement and you'll learn how the author came up with this idea for this book, and it's so heartwarming. Again, 10 out of 10 if you want to read a cute little rom-com that is going to have your heart smiling the whole time. Definitely check out this book. If you couldn't tell, I absolutely love rom-coms. This one is called Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. This is a enemies to lovers type of book, and it basically follows Olivia Marshall, who has the worst luck in the entire world, and after experiencing the latest stroke of bad luck in her life, she has to move in with her brother, who lives with his best friend Colin. Colin and Olivia have never gotten along. One night they start texting one another without realizing that they're Colin and Olivia. Both of them think that they're texting just a random person in the world, a random wrong number. Colin realizes quite early on, and I'm not spoiling that because literally on the back, but Colin realizes early on that the person that he's texting is not a stranger and it's actually Olivia. So he has to figure out whether or not to continue texting her or to ghost her completely because, again, she's his best friend's little sister. I loved Olivia's and Colin's banter with with one another. I love that their relationship was so fun. They were able to joke, make fun of each other, and I just love those types of relationships, and it definitely was funny. I was reading this book at night before going to sleep, and I would literally laugh out loud, and my husband would be like, what are you laughing about? And I'm like, it's this book. It's actually pretty darn funny. It's a very cute rom-com. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this book, but if you want to laugh and have a good time, I highly recommend this book. It's so freaking cute. This next book I read months ago. I think I read it back in January. It's one of the first rom-coms that got me back into reading, because last year I felt like I was in a reading slump the entire year. This book was one of the first books that I read, and I actually fell back in love with reading, and it was so cute. This is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This is another rom-com, so freaking adorable. This is a enemies to lovers type of book, and it basically follows Carolina. She is dumped on her wedding day. Her fiance doesn't even have the decency to show up to the wedding and break up with her. He sends his little brother, Max. Because he sends his little brother, Max, Carolina hates them both. She thinks that Max was the reason why her fiance decided to dump her on their wedding day. Fate brings Max and Carolina together. They actually have to work together on a project related to their jobs. While working together, sparks fly, and they have to figure out if these emotions that they're feeling are real, and how do they get past the fact that Carolina was about to marry Max's brother. I thought I was going to have a hard time getting past the fact that Carolina was going to marry Max's brother, but the author did such a great job in writing this book that I did not think it was weird at all. I honestly felt like they were meant to be together this whole time. So absolutely loved. I forget what I gave this book. I think it's on my Goodreads. Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So highly recommend. This is another book that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but it was absolutely adorable. I loved reading it. It was actually funny. Some rom-coms label themselves as rom-coms and they're not funny at all, and I'm like, why are you labeled as a rom-com? There's literally nothing funny in this book, but this one had its very funny moments, and I also like that the main character was Latina. I do have another mystery slash thriller recommendation for you. It's actually on my phone because I read the book on my phone, and it's called Vanishing Girls by Lisa Reagan. I absolutely loved this book. This is the first book in the Detective Josie Quinn series. I still haven't finished the 14th book. I definitely will this summer. The first one is probably one of my favorites just because it made me become obsessed with the whole series in general, but the other ones are just as good. This one basically follows Detective Josie Quinn, who was recently suspended from her job. During her suspension, a young female goes missing, and Josie Quinn is trying to get back into her department so she can help investigate, but the chief of police is not having it. He doesn't want her anywhere near this case. Josie Quinn is like, what are you talking about? I'm a detective. This is what I do, and this girl's life is in danger. So she sets out by herself to find this girl. As her investigation progresses, she realizes that what she knew about her town, it was completely wrong. Everyone that she trusts is now a suspect to this missing girl abduction. It is super fast paced. This is another book that you're not going to want to put down. If you're into detective mysteries type of books, then this is the series for you. I promise you're going to become obsessed. I love this series so much. Like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5 star review on Goodreads. So freaking good. I kind of regret not buying the physical copies of the book. All the books in the series I've read on my phone, and I regret that so much. I just did not think I was going to become so obsessed with this series, but that is pretty much it. These are all of my summer book recommendations. Let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these books. What are some books that you are looking to read this summer? I would love to know. Maybe I'll check them out myself and read them. But that's pretty much it for today's summer book recommendations video. Really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.